What's up, guys? This is Matt Dollar, and we're back at the Boogie Bottoms yet again. This is round number 2 for Bottoms Up at Boogie Bottoms. Today we're playing the bottom course, which is also known as the red course. The Pro Division only played this one once. It is slightly shorter than the other course, and probably a little less difficult. Hole number 1 here is one of the few, if not the only, original hole on the entire property. This hole has been here all 7 years of the tournament. And sometimes the ditch short right and deep right of the basket is OB, but today it's casual. And they've actually cleaned it up quite a bit. It used to be just really severe thorns and briars down there, and so bad that you would just leave a disc. We got Nick Robinson teeing off here out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. This will be everyone's first look at Nick. He said it's the first time he's played on film. Nick went with an enforcer there, the same disc guy threw. We got Austin Lytle, another guy you might not know. He's out of the Atlanta area, and his buddy Dylan Holt. Both of these guys exclusively throw Prodigy. So Dylan's going to throw a pretty good looking shot, and it's going to give him a birdie putt down there. Austin's drive went a little left in the woods, but he kicked out. Gives him a putt, but he is not able to connect, and now he's going to have a comebacker. The wind is playing tricks down here on this green, and it is definitely lifting people's discs. However, Versola sneaks one in the corner of the basket. He had a really awkward lie over there, too. Nice comebacker from Dylan to get the par. Austin with a little tough break there, but it doesn't roll down into the ditch, so we'll have to settle for bogey. I'll putt with the Cenas to grab my birdie, and Nick, who putts with Shields, will knock his birdie in as well. So Austin's in for his bogey, and we will move on to hole number 2. Hole number 2 says 387 feet. It is uphill and playing into the wind. Probably should have looked at that tee sign before I decided to throw a sidearm. I threw a pretty good line, but it just didn't get enough distance. So now we got Matt Versola. Sidearm is his specialty. I would expect him to park this hole. Let's see what he does. Comes up a little short. It's a little better than mine, but that'll give him a long putt for 2. And Nick Robinson's going to go with the backhand. And that is just an excellent looking shot from Nick. That'll definitely get him on the putting green. Dylan's going to follow his lead and take a similar line with his backhand. And that's a very tasty shot from Dylan. I think if I had thrown this hole in practice, I probably would have went with the backhand off the tee. Unless there's a favorable wind or no wind, this is probably a little bit out of my sidearm distance, especially since it doesn't fit the mold of a flex shot. Still gave myself a putt though, so I'm going to try to give it a bib without going down this hill behind the basket.
Good.
And I was a little worried that it took off down the hill, but it ended up just sitting about 10-15 feet from the basket. Austin had a very nice line on his. It just kind of fell out of the sky. And MTV's does the same thing. But Dylan Holt will correct off their mistake, show him how it's done, and grab his birdie. So Nick has a little bit of like a hyzer spin putt with the shield there. I could imagine it could be a little dicey in the wind sometimes, but he putted really well this weekend. So I was pretty impressed with the way he putts. So now we got the Tonal of Love. This hole's been around for a while. It changes in length slightly, and the road is more grown in than it used to be. I just went a little too high there. It had a pretty good line on it. It's hard to get one going down this hill fast enough with like a putter. But if you throw a mid-range and you throw it really good, you're probably going to go too far. Kind of a tricky distance. Looks like Nick's going to throw that shield off the tee. He comes out just a little bit left. That's really the good play. What Austin did there is you just throw a backhand and just air to the right side if you're going to miss. Just have it turn over a little bit more than it should, because it'll usually hit that hill and kick out. I'm I'm going to have to go sidearm up shot with my Cenis.
PT1.
It is definitely my favorite flick approach disc. So one thing I don't like about this hole right now is the basket is awfully close to all that stuff on the left. Makes for a really tough putt if you're only 10, 15 feet. So Nick's got a little tester to save his par. It's going to come up just a little bit short. MTV with the birdie chance after a little friendly branchola. So Dylan is proving my point. He's in a really tough spot, and he's only about, I don't know, maybe 15 feet from the basket. The Cenis sidearm went a little too far past, but I'm able to make the comebacker. Oh, Dylan with a tough putt there, so he's going to go from top of the box to bottom. Birdie on the last hole to double bogey here. Looks like everyone else is going to card a par except for Nick, who will get a bogey, and we'll move on to hole 4. I definitely should have played this hole before the tournament. Never seen this hole, and threw the worst shot I threw the entire event right here. You can see my disc over to the left. It just went kind of over the top of those woods, found a little hole, and penetrated. Not a good spot to be. Turns out it was just like a mid-range shot, or maybe just a forehand, but it's really hard to get a forehand to come back far enough. It's hard to tell from this angle, but the turn is so severe, you really can't tell how far right you need to go off the tee, and it's really as far right as you can possibly get. I was trying to throw like a big flex shot, kind of like Nick's doing right here, but Nick threw a much better line. After watching all these shots, I definitely think the play on this hole is to take a mid-range and just throw it with as much ante as you can. Let it fade down to the right. Dylan's done an excellent job on that. It came out just a bit at the end. So mine was so far in there, the only way I could get back to the fairway was to throw a sidearm back at the tee. I mean, believe me, if I had any kind of thumber or tomahawk route to get out of there and towards the basket, I would have taken it, but there wasn't any. You can see me walking in the background back to the tee over there. Not all the way back to the tee. I'm probably about 70 feet in front of the tee. Still had to throw a little sidearm to get up there. Went with the moonshine spark. Nick went deep off his drive. He threw some kind of fairway driver, I do believe, and he had the perfect line, but it was just a little too much disc. Austin almost made his birdie putt. Now Dylan will have his chance. Everyone's drawing a little metal, but nobody's getting it in. Well, I'll have to settle for a bogey after throwing that awful tee shot. Everyone else looks like they're going to get a par. And we'll move on to hole 5, which is our first par 4. 630 feet, and it is a sharp left turn. So the angle of the tee forces you to kind of just throw it out. So you can throw it as far as you can forward and let it finish a little left, or you can try to get left quicker off the tee. Versola went with the first method, so did Austin. And then you're going to see me and Dylan both try to make it go left as quick as possible. Nick kind of went right in between all of ours. Pretty good shot for Nick. And that's a really good shot there for Dylan. He threw that one very good. I go with the defender. Threw it with just a little too much hyzer, but it did the job. Got me in the field and over to the left. So you can see this grass is super thick in this field. It's really not even grass, it's like little wildflowers. So your disc really doesn't skip until you get past these wildflowers, and you don't get past the wildflowers until you're about 30 feet from the basket. So you have to really be careful here not to leave it short, especially with this tailwind pushing down and the rain starting. And as you see, MTV did that just indeed. He left it just a little bit low, and the wind knocked it down short. So he's going to be furthest out for his birdie putt. Dead center line, just a little bit low. Dylan's putt's just a little bit left, but it hits plenty of chains and drops in there for his birdie. Nick gets an easy birdie, and I'll tap in there too. And we will move to hole 6. It says par 4 on the sign, probably a little more of a par 3 for the pro division. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am not a fan of 480-foot par 3s at all. So I do like this being scored as a par 4. I would have liked to seen the basket pushed back about another 30 feet. But then I think you'd have people trying to throw over the trees, and that might get onto other fairways, so I can see why that would be a problem. As it is, I think this hole played not too bad, considering the wind. We had some serious wind on this hole. We did have a slight issue finding Dylan's disc on this hole. And it's, just right here in the middle of this field. It's just hard to see because all the wildflowers, they're really low to the ground, but it's really thick, so pretty easy to lose track of a disc in this. Unless you throw it as far as Austin did, he gets it all the way across the field into the woods. It really seems like the Atlanta area has more than its fair share of guys who can throw a forehand really, really far. There's also a lot of overhands in the Georgia, North Georgia, Atlanta area too. I highly doubt I had anything to do with that. Austin stuck a little on the left side, but he's able to poke one close enough to give himself a look at birdie. Versola flicks one in there, might have been trying to make a little move.
Nice out.
And Dylan's just going to have to pitch over after not having the best second shot.
That's the ball.
Great putt from Austin to save that birdie. As you can see, that rain jacket I'm wearing keeps coming on and off, on and off. The rain could not decide what it wanted to do. A little later, I think it'll change its mind and decide to just stay with us. But for now, we're playing the on and off game, and it's back on here on hole number 7. This is just a little short tunnel shot. It's like a little roadway, but it is a pretty good hole. I thought I might be throwing an ace run there. I was standing in the way so you couldn't see it, but I actually caught one of the branches up high on the right side. One of the problems I've seemed to be having on these tunnel shots is I'm hitting the gaps, hitting the lines, but I'm throwing them just a little bit too high. And that's not a good recipe, especially on a temp course, because you're going to catch branches and get kicks. Dylan has just pured that shot, and he should be right up there for an easy birdie. Everybody else is left jump putting. Nick's stuck in the woods on the right side just a little bit. Able to get it out of there with a shield and give it a little bid. I'm looking at about 35-40 feet. Maybe about 35 feet. Felt like a 40-footer in the rain, though, that's for sure. So these guys are going to clean up their pars, and Dylan will have a shot at birdie.
But
So Dollar and Dylan cart the birdies. We move on to hole number 8. Very peculiar looking T sign there. And so you're trying to make it through this little tunnel, and straight out in the field there's the basket. But once you get out in the tunnel, there is a horseshoe of out of bounds. So it's basically kind of like a little island once you get out of the tunnel. I went a little early left with the Cenis. It's going to leave me for a tough shot. Dylan threw a good one, but Nick has pulled his right, so we're going to test each side of the rough and see how we like it before we get to the green. Matty V throws a nice looking shot just a little bit to the right, and it's going to get a little gobbled up before it makes it out the gap. Austin pretty much follows his line exactly, but somehow finds the gap and gets out there for a birdie putt. So not my best shot there. I don't know if you could tell what happened. It looks like I reached back to throw the forehand, and the rim of the disc got over some of those branches, and so when I went to throw it forward, they were caught on the branches behind me. Kind of came out like a wounded duck and went about 30 feet. So me and Nick struggle to get out into the field. I leave that putt just a little bit low with the Cenis, and it's looking like my second bogey of the round. Austin not able to get that birdie putt in there, although he gives it a pretty good bid. So no one's going to get the birdie here on hole number 8. Nick and myself will both take bogeys, and we'll move on to hole 9, the last hole of our video. 405 feet across the field. Over to the right, you got Camp Atlanta, Camp Georgia, whatever you want to call it. You hear MTV say don't hit that blue Jeep. That's MTV's Jeep. The first day we were here, Thomas Elm, one of my buddies, his car was over there right by Versola's, and it got railed. Left a fat dent. So we definitely had to be aware when we were hanging out in our tent when tournament rounds weren't going on and we weren't out, playing. We had to be aware of people throwing into our camp. I'm pretty angry about that bogey on the last hole, so I decided to throw the anger thumber. Not my best thumber though. I went with this Felon that's like super flat. I thought maybe I'd get some good pan out of it. I should have just went with the Moonshine Spark probably. Wasn't a bad shot, but it's not going to give me a very good birdie look. So anything that ends up in this wood line on the right is pretty much completely blocked from the basket. You have to either punch through or go around to get back over. Austin cut the corner and went through there on his putt. I'm going to go Sports Center Cenas. Yeah, that disc is doing some crazy stuff this weekend. You just got to go with the flow. That's why I'm putting with it, throwing it backhand, forehand. Just pulling it out whenever it's necessary, or maybe not even necessary, but just possible, because when you're really hot with a certain disc, I mean, you got to keep it rolling. Disc golf's a very mental game, and if you believe in that one disc, it can do some wonderful things for you. So MTV will have a chance at his birdie here on hole number 9. And MTV beat the basket up during that round, had a chance to put together something really good. But that's only halfway through. We still have the back 9 to go. And these are our scores so far. Right now I have a 3-stroke lead on Versola, and he's 2 ahead of Nick. And Dylan and Austin are right there behind them. So check out our hole sponsors here from the Bottoms Up at Boogie Bottom. Big shout out to these guys and also to everyone who helped make this event possible. Thanks to Carlos here for filming. Thanks to Latitude 64 for their support. Dynamic Disc for making these great baskets for this event. Please subscribe to Matt Dollar Disc Golf and be sure to check out round 2 back 9 and round 3, which is coming out soon.